What is up, friends? Hey, it is round two of Live at Thrive. So it's good to see your faces. Well, not your faces exactly. It's not exactly how this works. But it's good to see you. And just like we start every week, or at least we started last week this way, I would love to hear how you are doing in one word. It's kind of a weird time we live in right now. And so in the chat, I would love to hear about how life is going. So just post in there real quick, one word. How is life today? And while you're doing that, I'm actually going to be ordering a pizza for the winner of a game in the first middle school round of Thrive. But yeah, tell us, how's life going? I would love to hear about it. Just one word. Hi, Phoebe. Hi, Ollie. It's good to see you guys. Exhausted, happy, relaxed. Relaxed is good. I support that entirely. Just in general, being relaxed, I think, is a good thing. Bored, yes. Heard that. That feels appropriate right now. Let's see here. I am crazy, anxious, tired, fun, lazy. All those things feel real and good. Let me see here. Again, if you didn't join us right off the bat, I am buying a pizza for our winner of our game in the first round. If you win our game here, I will certainly also buy you a pizza to be delivered to your house. But if you're wondering why I'm a little bit distracted, I am finishing that up real quick. Let's see here. I was about to tell you guys about what the credit card number is that I'm ordering this with, and that feels like it would be inappropriate for that to be on YouTube, and then you get monies that I'm not supposed to give people. So anyways, okay, that pizza is ordered. Slow, bored. Dawson, the question is just how are you in one word? So thank you for just a little bit of generosity and letting me get settled here. Real quick, a couple things. I would say this every week, but if you want to know what's going on with Gathering Students, if you want to be able to always know where we are for Thrive or for or what's going on during the week, the best two places are right here. Well, there-ish. Instagram and here on YouTube. Subscribe, like our Instagram page. There's going to be a lot going on this week, and so we'd love to connect with you guys there. The second thing, and this is kind of important, well, two second things. One, if you have like a pillow that you love snuggling with or sitting on because it's just really soft, go ahead and grab it and find that pillow, and you're gonna actually just sit on it, which is gonna sound kind of weird. I'm sitting on a comfy pillow here, and it's gonna tie in later, I promise. But find a comfy pillow. Go ahead and take your shoes off, and then to play our game, you are going to need your phone. And you're going to need to be able to text me something if you would like to win this pizza that we're going to have delivered out. So you're going to probably need to be watching this on a screen that's not your phone, or if you are on your phone, just be ready to maybe do some screenshotting. Just fair warning. So everyone's on the same page. I don't want anyone to miss out on having a chance to win this game today. So with that being said, hey friends, it's fun to read this chat. The high school chat is bonkers, and I love it. And so just thank you for that gift in my life. So our game tonight, we've played a version of this at like real in-person Thrive, but we're gonna slow. I'm just catching up on the chat here. Again, I'm about 10 seconds ahead of where the stream is, so it's a little bit of a delay. But today we're going to play this game called Bird Hunt. And here's how this game is going to work. On the screen is just going to be a rotating collection of pictures. Sometimes there will be birds in the screen. Sometimes there will be no birds in the screen. And sometimes those birds will be ducks or sparrows or quails. Occasionally there will be bald eagles. They're going to show up the least of any of the other birds. And here's how this is going to work. You're going to need to pull your phone out. And the first person who can snap a picture of the rare and elusive bald eagle and text it to me, we are going to, right when this is over, I'm going to buy a pizza and I'm going to send it to your house. And you can get 1 or 2 toppings on it. And that is for you. So it's probably important that everyone knows my my phone number, since that is a crucial part of this. So my number is 615-479-2801. Again, that's 615-479-2801. And so if you snap a picture of the bald eagle and you send it to me, I will send you a pizza. It's just that simple. So also send your name. I don't know everyone's number, and I may not have it in my phone. If you're thinking you're cute and sending me a picture of this bald eagle on this title screen, that is very funny. I appreciate your humor, but it does not count. So with that being said, get your phones out, and we are going to start spinning for our bald eagle. There's owls, ducks. I'm not sure what all the others are. There's bald eagles. Thank you, Mark, for putting that in the chat so anyone can find it very quickly. I am here ready, so let's see here. I'm waiting. Let's see. Still only have title graphics, so if you are hoping that you're still the winner, there is still a chance. Do we have a bald eagle? Oh man, this is taking longer than middle schoolers. Middle schoolers went bald eagle hunting quick. Grace Inzer, you have a pizza coming your way. Oh, guys, there are a lot of pictures being taken really quick. I appreciate, but we do have a winner. Let's see. Second, Grace, you were second in the finding a bird. Freshman Grace, job well done. Let's stop our, I don't know what kind of bird that is. If someone knows what that is, like a goldfinch maybe? I think that's a bird. I think it's a book. But congratulations. Grace, job well done. If you will text me the kind of pizza you'd like, you can get 1 or 2 toppings added onto it. We will send it to your house, so it'll be ready. We'll send it right after we're done here, and you will have a pizza for your dinner. And there are 100 screenshots in my camera roll. Sadie, hilarious. That makes my heart laugh a lot. We are, by the way, going to always highlight that, like, keep the chat clean. We don't want to have to delete anything, so keep it all appropriate. We're here to have fun. So it is Holy Week, which just means that on Sunday we have Easter coming up. It's the day we celebrate the resurrection of Jesus. Yes, Jonathan, caca, indeed. Battlehawks for life. And so tonight we're actually looking at this meal that Jesus has with his disciples the night before he ends up being arrested and being crucified. We call it the Last Supper. A couple hundred years ago, Leonardo da Vinci painted this painting of the Last Supper with Jesus and his very white, very long-haired, kind of strange-looking disciples sitting at this table having very strange, patterns of conversations. In modern times, we've updated this look. Who doesn't love a meal where Bugs is the Jesus of the story? It's just kind of weird because there's no carrots, which feels weird for Bugs. But it occurred to me, as I was thinking about this, that if you knew that this meal you were eating was going to be the last meal before this was going to be your last meal before you died, what would you eat? This is Jesus' last meal that he's going to eat before he dies. And so if you were coming to your last meal, what would you eat? For me, that would probably look like a chimichanga, which is just like a fried burrito covered in cheese sauce and guacamole and lettuce with some refried beans and rice, probably brownie batter to finish it off. That's my dream. Oh my gosh, that's my last. If I was having one last meal before I was going, that is the meal I would choose. So, if you had one meal before you were gone, what ballin' macaroni and cheese? Justin, are we talking about the Kraft version, or like homemade, good quality cheese? Salt and smoke ice cream. We're just skipping the main courses and going straight to ice cream, which I really respect. By the way, you can text me, but add it to the chat. I'd love for all of us with Ritz crackers on top and lobster. I just ordered mac and cheese from Salt and Smoke. Wow, nice timing. Chinese food and cake. That just feels all of the real. I can appreciate that. Lobster Alfredo. I don't totally know what that is, but I think it's lobster pasta, and that sounds delicious. Sushi, grilled pineapple, and red lobster biscuits. Come on. Lots of seafood going on here. Spaghetti from the movie Elf. Yes, and also that's how diabetes happens. So that's good, Dawson. I like that a lot. French fries and a burger. That's solid. There's really no wrong answer. I just wanted to see what all of us as a gathering we're eating. So here is the thing. We have this picture of Jesus' Last Supper. And in truth, that last meal wouldn't really have looked anything like that. So this is what a table in Jesus' time would have looked like. It would have looked like this. It's called a triclinium, which just means tri for three and clinium for reclining. So there wouldn't have been chairs. Everyone would have been reclining on pillows, which is why we are sitting on pillows tonight, kind of remind ourselves how this meal worked. And they would have sat around this table and passed food around. And there's a really particular order to how these chairs were arranged. So the guest, the host, who was the most important person at the meal, they would have sat in the second seat. And they would have sat there because they would have been the first person served by their assistant, usually the host's best friend. And what would happen is you'd lay down with your head facing the table and you'd recline on your left arm and you'd pass food over your head with your right hand. And so the host would be the first person served, so that seat was the most important. Now, you'd go all the way around the table in descending order, so the the guest of honor would have been next, the person of the most esteem. And then at the very end of the table would have been the servant. And one of the servant's jobs would have been to wash the feet of all the people at the meal. Which got me thinking about how we sit at Thanksgiving. And so I'm curious, where do you guys all sit when Thanksgiving comes up? Like, are you guys at the kiddie table? Have you guys graduated to the, like, I sit with everybody? We don't do a kiddie table? And, like, in my family, when all of us are together, my granddad sits at the head of the table. It's like a kind of an important structure to how Thanksgiving works. But there's, like, the adults, and we've now, like, I'm 31 years old, and I've just now graduated to, like, not being in the kiddie table. So I'm curious where you guys, who are now in high school, find yourselves at the Thanksgiving meal. What are we working with? At the table with my family, okay. Kids table. Jesse Lynn, it's good to know that you're still at the kids table. That's encouraging. I think I'm still at the kids' table. There's just now a generation beneath us, like the grandkids' table. It's not great. Kids' table, yep. This is encouraging. It's good to know where we all fit in here. Haven't had Thanksgiving for like 3 years? No! Oh, that's so sad. We're all pretty equal. Well, Sadie, I appreciate that. One big table, end of the table, we don't have a kids' table. That's good. I like this. Everyone gets to sit at the same table thing. So here's why that model was important. And this is how everyone would have sat in Jesus' time, is that the host at the Last Supper would have been Jesus. And he wouldn't have sat in the middle of the table. He would have sat in the host seat. And that just means that the person sitting next to him was John. Now, John in the Gospels is described as the beloved disciple. He's kind of the one that's closest to Jesus. Anytime there's something going on, Jesus makes sure to invite John. And so he would have been the best friend, like the assistant. He was feeding Jesus first. Now, here's where it gets kind of interesting. Then at the end of the table, where the servant would have sat, is Peter. And we know this for a couple of reasons. One, because at one point, Jesus says, one of you all is going to betray me. And Peter yells across the table, it's not me, is it? And we know that you don't yell if you're sitting like right next door to Jesus. But it's interesting because Peter is like the golden child. He's the one who raises his hand first for everything. He's the teacher's pet. He's the one who tries to walk on water. He's the one who tells Jesus he's God's chosen Messiah. Like, Peter's a big deal. If you were like ranking the disciples, you would have put him probably right next to Jesus, which is really interesting because right before this meal, Jesus is teaching the disciples this lesson about how the kingdom of God works. And in the kingdom of God, the first shall be last, and the last shall be first. Jesus kind of flipping the roles. Like, Peter was the likely candidate, and in fact, he's sitting where the servant would sit. What's even more interesting is that the person sitting next to Jesus in the guest of honor spot was Judas. Now, if you don't know the story, Judas is the disciple who betrayed Jesus. Judas is the one who went to the Roman authorities and said, hey, if you want to arrest and kill this guy, I'm in. Let's do it. If you give me a little bit of money, I'll tell you where he's going to be. You can arrest him. You can kill him. Let's make this work. And Jesus knew that because at the meal, he said, one of you is going to betray me, and it's the one that I'm serving, the one who dips their bread in the same cup that I do, which means that he was sitting next to Jesus. So we know not only was Judas sitting next to him, but that means that he was in the place reserved for the guest of honor. It's like Jesus was teaching this lesson that said, Judas, you're probably the person who thinks they belong here the least, which means I need you to be here closest to me. I need you to know that you are loved, that you belong here. I know what you are going to do, what you've already done. You belong at this table. I want you here. And I want you to sit in the highest seat. I imagine when Judas went to the meal, he was probably thinking, tonight I'm going to do the worst thing I could ever do. I don't really belong here. And Jesus invites him to sit closest, which makes me wonder, who has invited you to sit with them? I don't just mean sitting at a table, but we've all had times where we felt like we didn't belong. Maybe it was here at the gathering. Maybe it was you showed up to a Thrive or a CoreGroup for the first time and you didn't know if you belonged. And someone made you feel like you were there. Or maybe it was when you were in middle school and you didn't know who to sit with at lunch. I mean, for me, it was this guy named Sam Rogers. By the way, add this to the chat. I'd love to know who these people are that have invited you. Sam Rogers, before I started middle school, 3 days before I started middle school, I moved from California to Tennessee. I didn't know anybody. And I went to this orientation thing for middle school, like 2 days before it started, not knowing anybody. I sat at a table by myself, feeling totally awkward, and this big kind of burly guy walked over, he had bleached hair, and he's like, I don't know you. And I was like, you are a weirdo. And he said, I'm Martin. Or he didn't say that. He said, I'm Sam. It's good to meet you. And we became great friends. And the entire room changed for me because somebody was willing to say, I see you. I'm glad you're here. So who is someone that has invited you when you weren't sure that you belonged? You never got invited. I'm glad you're here. I am glad that you are here. But who is someone that has invited you into a place where you didn't feel welcome or known at the beginning? Guys, we all feel that way at times. And I know for a fact, a couple of my senior friends, I know for a fact that Judas had to be feeling that way, which I think is why Jesus invited him to sit closest. And here's what I know to be a fact, that seat that Jesus held for Judas, to make sure that Judas knew that he belonged, that is the same seat that Jesus is holding for us. No matter how far away you feel from God, no matter what you think you've done that might make it awkward, that Jesus might not want anything to do with you, that is your seat. The further we feel away from God, the closer God is reaching out to invite us. So I love the way this story unfolds. And the truth is, throughout the Bible, there are hundreds of times when friends on varsity baseball, that's cool. There are hundreds of times when the writers of the Bible describe God or Jesus talking about God's people with all these different words. And they're words that are affirming, that say, you are mine, I have called you by name. Here's a couple of examples from Scripture. Words that the Bible uses to describe us. And so my question is, which of these words describes you today? Or maybe even better yet, which of these words do you need to hear today? Do you need to be reminded that is true of you? Over in the chat, I'd love to hear, what is it in your life that you need to hear today? What are the words that God is speaking about you that you need to be reminded of, just in the same way that Judas needed to be reminded that he was part of God's story, that he was part of what God was doing in the world. And even if he had betrayed Jesus, Jesus still had a seat at the table for him. There's a story. When we were coming back from Mozambique, there's a story that I wanted to share real quick. When we were coming back from Mozambique, I was reading a book called The Sun Does Shine. And it was written by a guy named Anthony Ray Hinton. And in just a second, I'm going to take the words down. I'm going to show you a picture of Anthony, but I'd love to see what you guys have to say about those words. But Anthony Ray Hinton was an African-American man who was convicted to death row for the murder of a white woman in Alabama. He didn't commit the crime. There was evidence to prove he didn't, but it was a white jury, and he was he was convicted. And he spent 30 years on death row before he was released. And he had this incredible story where Anthony says to, he meets a man on death row named Henry. And Henry was a younger guy, he's a white guy, and his parents were leaders in the Ku Klux Klan around Alabama. And he had been put in jail and put on death row because he'd killed a young black teenager because he was black. And he had been taught his whole life to fear and hate people who had darker skin than him, like Anthony. And Anthony tells a story that on death row, he learned a lesson in love. Because all throughout Henry's life, he should have hated Anthony. Anthony should have hated him back. And Anthony did something different. He got to know Henry. And for the first time in his life, someone showed Henry what real love looked like. Miraculous, impossible love. And Henry's heart started to break a little bit. And so Anthony just pulled him in closer. Anthony pulled him in tighter, and they got to know each other more and more. And for the first time, Henry learned what it meant to love and actually be loved. Henry ended up dying on death row. But as the story goes, Anthony and Henry became best friends. And Henry learned that there was a better way to live life than racism and hatred, because somebody was willing to extend incredible, impossible life and love. So friends, there will be days where we need to be reminded that we are loved, but there will also be days that we need to become Jesus for other people, and we need to love and invite to our table people that it might feel really hard to love. And so the question becomes, who do we need to love? Who do we need to invite in the way that Jesus invited Judas? And then the last thing, we're going to get into this in core groups. What's really interesting is Jesus is the host and Peter is the servant. And Peter is supposed to wash the feet of everyone who comes to the party. And before he can do that, Jesus gets up, grabs the water bowl, takes off his tunic, and starts washing the disciples' feet. This whole meal is like a big meta lesson for Jesus, where he teaches the disciples, I have called you. I am the host. I'm sitting in the place of honor at this table, but my job is to wash your feet. The first become the last. We're going to talk more about that in core groups, but Jesus, at the most important seat, switches with Peter at the bottom seat. So every week we've talked about how we're going to try to live out this faith thing. That we don't believe that faith is something we just talk about at Thrive or in core groups. It's not just this thing that we discuss, but it's something that we live out. It is something that we live in our communities, in our neighborhoods, on our block, in our houses. And so last week we had this challenge where we could either bake some goods for our neighbors, which me and Hannah did. We made some brownie cookies for our neighbors across the street and dropped them off on their porch. Or maybe the other option was to go deliver groceries for a neighbor who might need help with groceries. So this week we actually don't have a specific challenge for you. We're going to let you talk about it in core groups. And maybe your whole core group is going to do one thing together. Or maybe you're all going to do separate things but come back together. And we're not going to meet next week during Easter, so you have 2 weeks to live this out. But here's the challenge. To do something that's inconvenient, that's maybe hurts a little bit, like washing someone's feet. Don't wash anybody's feet, like distance. Distance is important. But something that maybe is a little bit inconvenient. And something that maybe hurts you, where you become less so that someone else can become more. We're going to put on Instagram in our story a question. How are you living it out this week? How are you becoming less so someone can become more? I'd love to hear the stories of how you're going to live this out this week. So that's kind of the end of tonight. we have two real quick things. The first is this. We talked about this with the 8th graders in the middle school Thrive, but if you've done confirmation with us before, we've totally revamped that, and we're doing this thing called Students Explore. It's 3 weeks. We're going to start on the Thursday after Easter, so next Thursday, and 3 weeks of just exploring what it means to follow Jesus. The basics, Christianity 101. What is the Bible? Why does it matter? What is God's story, and how do I fit into it? How do I follow more closely Jesus? And what does it look like to, who is God? Who is Jesus? All of these things, we're going to ask a lot of questions. If you've been through confirmation but feel like maybe I just need a refresher on the basics, or I want to kind of restart this thing, we're going to have a link to sign up for that later this week. If you've never been confirmed, but you're like, this feels like an opportunity, I don't have anything better to do, you can hop in. It's a really cool opportunity to explore what it means to give our lives over to Jesus and to follow recklessly into the love that Jesus is inviting us into. So I'd invite you into that. The last thing is the way we end all of these live at Thrives, and that's an invitation to come to a core group. If you haven't been to a core group in a second, that's great. Tonight's the night. If you've never been to a core group ever, great. Tonight's the night. You should jump in tonight. All the links are just below me here in the notes on this stream, and you can hop right in. And it's a place to be known. It's a place to be real. A place to check in and have some leaders and other friends who are checking in on you. Friends, core groups are what we're about here. And our hope is that they're always a place where you can run and turn when life is kind of messy and hard. And so invite you in. I'm going to pop in some of those like I have the last couple weeks. But just know that I love you. I can't wait to see you guys soon. I hope you're doing okay. Reach out if you need help. Hop into one of those Zoom calls below. And until then, we'll talk to you later, friends.